have officially had the Chase Freedom Unlimited for 2.5 years at this point. A weird number to be making a review about, I know, but it's been a long time since I've talked about this card on the channel, so I figured now would be a good time to refresh my honest opinions on it. As usual with my year X reviews that I do on this channel, this video is not going to be of me reading straight off of their website. I understand that y'all can do that on your own, but I want it to really be from the heart where I give you my honest opinions on this card after getting to use it for the last 2.5 years. Now, this is especially important to me on a card like the Chase Freedom Unlimited because it is such a popular credit card on the credit card market. So let's go ahead and work through this video to answer the one big question we all have: is the Chase Freedom Unlimited worth the hype? So for starters, being that the Chase Freedom Unlimited is a no annual fee credit card, it does not have, a bunch of credits and benefits that we need to talk about on it really. And the two main ways to earn value from this card are going to be from 1, the welcome bonus, and 2, the spending categories on this card. So of course, let's start with the welcome offer. I personally opened this credit card on August 30th of 2021, which was during this card's special welcome offer of 20,000 points after spending $500 in the first 3 months of having it. That is the normal part of the welcome offer, but it also gave me an additional 5% back on gas stations for the first year of having the card, up to $6,000 worth of spend. Now, over the past year or so, this card has had a ton of really great welcome offers on it, and it usually always has at least like 2 good ones rotating on it at any given time. For example, right now, the base welcome offer is for 20,000 points after spending $500 in 3 months, but you also get 5% back on gas and grocery stores for the first year of having it, up to $12,000 worth of spend. They also have an additional offer right now, though, depending on the links that you use, to give you an additional 1.5% back on all of your purchases for the first year of having it, and that's on up to $20,000 worth of spend in the first year, but it does not include those 20,000 points for spending $500 in 3 months, so its maximum amount of value you can get from that is $300, which is why I would probably still personally go with the first offer I just mentioned. But if that first offer isn't around, then it technically is better than the 20,000 point offer, so it just depends on the time that you're applying. Also, I want to mention that I do have access to both of these offers, and I generally always will have access to both of the highest offers on this card, because not only do I have my referral links, but I also have affiliate links, and those give me direct access to the highest public welcome offers in general. So if you ever want a specific offer that you can't find in my video description, feel free to DM me on Instagram and I can get you to the right place. One other offer they have that I haven't mentioned yet was one that happened last year, where they literally doubled all of your cash back earned in the first year, and that was completely uncapped, which is pretty crazy. In general though, I would say the best bang for your buck is going to be that just base 20,000 points for spending $500 in 3 months, unless you're planning on using this card for like all of your purchases for the first year. While on the topic of welcome offers, there are a couple of quick disclaimers I need to make here. The first one, of course, being Chase's 524 rule. In order to get approved for this card, you have to be under Chase's 524 rule. And what that rule states is that if you've been approved for 5 or more personal credit cards from any lender in the past 24 months, Chase will automatically deny you for your next credit card application with them. That goes for all of their credit cards, but sometimes you're able to get around it on their business credit cards. However, I don't really ever see anybody getting around it on the personal Chase Freedom cards. On top of that, the second disclaimer is that you can get multiple welcome offers on this credit card. So the first way you can do that is by reapplying for a Chase Freedom Unlimited every 2 years, and you can implement the same strategy with the Chase Sapphire branded cards every 4 years. And yes, that is true even if you've had this specific credit card already. I know it can get very confusing, and people always ask if you can do that on both the Chase Freedom Flex and Chase Freedom Unlimited, or if they're technically considered the same product. But lucky for us, Chase treats the Chase Freedom Unlimited and Chase Freedom Flex as completely separate products, meaning that not only can you get the bonus on each of them, back to back if you wanted to, or at the same time, what have you, but you can also reapply for those cards, like I said, every 2 years to get the bonuses on both of them again. To do this though, you cannot be currently holding the card that you're trying to get the bonus on again. So for example, if I wanted the Chase Freedom Unlimited bonus after that 2-year mark hit, I would have to product change this to a different Chase credit card so that I'm not holding any Chase Freedom Unlimiteds, and then I could reapply for a Chase Freedom Unlimited and get that bonus on it. Like I said, you can do the exact same thing with the Chase Freedom Flex. You just wouldn't be able to be holding one of those when you reapplied for it. So it does take a lot of work in like planning out how you're going to product change each card to what. And I will say right now that the pro strategy is to try to product change these cards to the OG Chase Freedom card, since that will not take up any of your welcome bonus slots for a Chase Freedom Flex or Chase Freedom Unlimited, but not every customer service rep is going to allow you to do that, so your mileage may vary. So at this point, so far so good with the Chase Freedom Unlimited. Its welcome offer is top of the class for cards in its category, and by in its category, I mean other no annual fee catch-all credit cards like the Citi Double Cash or Wells Fargo Active Cash. But let's continue to look into this card to see if it still might be overrated. overrated. Next up, let's talk about this card's earning categories and how much I personally earned from those in the last few years. Just for reference, so you don't have to look this up, the Chase Freedom Unlimited will give you 5x back on all Chase travel purchases, 3x on dining, 3x on drugstores, and 1.5x on everything else. So the main reason people go for this credit card is going to be for that 1.5x on all of your miscellaneous spend, since most cards out there are only going to give you a flat 1x earning rate for those categories. So the Chase Freedom Unlimited is going to raise your base earning rate by technically 0.5x, which albeit is not a ton, but it is still something and it adds up over time. Now here's where one of the biggest arguments against this credit card comes up though. Yes, there are a bunch of 2% credit cards out there that will give you, again, an additional 0.5x over the Chase Freedom Unlimited, but the general rebuttal to that would be, well, what point currency are you earning in? And what I mean by that is that I personally value Chase's points much higher than I do other lenders' ecosystems. For example, yeah, I could be getting 2% back on the Citi Custom Cash, but I don't personally value Citi's points as highly as Chase points, and that's mainly because I like their travel partners, but we'll talk about that more later. And on the same note of the criticism of the miscellaneous 1.5x category, another argument against that is the fact that, well, it earns in more than just that one category, while cards out there like the Citi Double Cash or Wells Fargo Active Cash only earn 2% back on every purchase. I will agree though that most people are not going to use the 5x back on Chase Travel or 3x back on drugstores, so the main additional earning category you get with the Chase Freedom Unlimited is 3x back on dining, which the other Chase cards do have, but we're not talking about those cards here today. But I would say that even just that extra 3x back on dining is enough to make it generally more valuable to people than a flat 2% card out there. Now, I will say that in all honesty, for beginners, this is my most recommended credit card. And a big reason for that is because you don't really have to think about what charges you're putting on this card. So for somebody that's just starting out and they don't exactly know what way they want to go in the credit card game, you just know that you're going to be getting a respectable earning rate on every single one of your purchases by using the Chase Freedom Unlimited. Hence why it's a great catch-all credit card. And remember, once again, you're earning Chase Ultimate Rewards points on this card, which is going to be a key factor in why it's so valuable, and we're going to talk about that in a couple sections. At this point though, let's go ahead and get into some actual numbers so you can see how much I earned on this card over the last few years. In 2021, I got the welcome bonus of 20,000 points on this card, and unfortunately, I did not track all of the earnings that I got on any of my credit cards in 2021 because I hadn't even started this channel yet, but I would imagine that I earned closer to 30,000 points in the first year of having it. I just didn't confirm that. In 2022 though, I started tracking all of the earnings I had on all of my credit cards, and I actually only earned a total of 7,391 points from this card in 2022. Now you may think that's extremely low for a catch-all credit card that I'm technically using for a lot of my purchases, but remember that in 2022, I was already getting pretty heavily into the credit card game and was basically always spending towards a new welcome offer on one of my 12 credit cards at this point. So the Chase Freedom Unlimited was still a staple in my wallet. It was the catch-all card I brought around with me everywhere, but only really got main use whenever I wasn't spending towards a different welcome offer, and that was few and far between back then. In 2023, I earned even less points from this card, that being a total of 5,420 points. Now there's two big reasons for that. One being the same that I just mentioned for 2022. I've been applying for more and more cards in 2023, so those would serve as my catch-all credit cards for the times that I was spending towards those bonuses. But I also applied for the Capital One Venture X at the beginning of 2023, and that was a card that I put in my wallet to use as my catch-all at that point, mainly because I wanted to start accumulating a lot of Capital One miles since I had a lot of Chase points at the time and obviously had no Capital One miles. That has shifted again in 2024. This has become my catch-all credit card again, at least for all of my online purchases, which is honestly where the bulk of my purchases come from, at least in the miscellaneous category. And that's mainly because I redeemed all of my Chase points last year and still have a good amount of Capital One miles. So having the Chase Freedom Unlimited get some more use is theoretically going to help my Chase UR point balances. Now for full transparency here, I do want to mention that this is just the amount of points that I earned from my personal spend on it, but I was also very blessed to max out all of my referrals for this card in the past 2 years, and those point totals far outweigh the amount that I earned from spending on it. I'm approaching this review completely without referrals in mind, but I wanted to bring them up because, as y'all know, I don't hide any numbers from y'all. Okay, so at this point, we know that the Chase Freedom Unlimited has a very respectable welcome offer, as well as respectable earning categories on it. So again, this card seems like a very viable option depending on your goals in the credit card game. But let's get into the section that I've been referring to multiple times already, where I'll be explaining the value of Chase's Ultimate Rewards points and why this card is even more powerful because of that. So as a lot of y'all may know, the Points Guy values Chase's Ultimate Rewards points at roughly 2 cents per point, making it one, if not the highest value valued currencies out there. However, of course, the exact value you get for your Chase Ultimate Rewards points is going to depend on your redemptions. And when redeeming Chase Ultimate Rewards points, you have 3 general options. Option 1 is going to be cashback, which you would get 1 cent per point for. So take your total points in your account, divide it by 100. That's the amount of cash back your points could give you. You also have the travel portal, which can either give you 1, 1.25, or 1.5 cents per point, depending on what Chase card you have. If you're somebody without an annual fee Chase card, the max value you can get through the portal is 1 cent per point, and that's obviously not ideal. Once you add the Chase Sapphire Preferred to your setup, you can get 1.25 cents per point, and then the bigger brother of the CSP, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, would give you 1.5 cents per point through the portal. And then the third main option for redeeming your points is going to be through transfer partners. Now, the amount of value you can get from transfer partners is technically uncapped, and that's really where that 2 cent per point valuation comes from. What I will say here is that you should never redeem your Chase points for anything less than 1 cent per point. A lot of times, Amazon, for example, is only going to give you 0.8 cents per point. Some gift cards and Apple products, stuff like that, sometimes won't give you even 1 cent per point, and I would never redeem in that fashion. At that point, you might as well just cash out your points at 1 cent per point and go buy those things on Amazon or whatever. But theoretically, the best way to redeem your points is going to be, again, through transfer partners, which you need a higher tier Chase card to be able to do. I will mention too that each transfer partner will also give you different values. And a lot of times you're going to hear people telling you to use either Hyatt when it comes to the hotels, or the international airline partners like British Airways or Air Canada or something like that. And that's because they will generally give you a higher cent per point value than a different partner like, say, IHG on the hotel side or JetBlue or something on the domestic airline side. I want to note that I personally have 5 different Chase Ultimate Reward point earning cards at this point in my setup, but before I had the Chase Sapphire Preferred, I never redeemed any of my Chase points because I wanted to wait until I had an annual fee Chase card, which for me was the Chase Sapphire Preferred, since I would then be able to transfer those points out to those partners that I heard good things about. Now, if you're somebody that never travels and don't plan to and just want cash back, I would argue that Chase's credit cards probably aren't the best for you because their earning categories do overlap a lot, but that is the beauty of the Chase ecosystem compared to other lenders, and it's why I call them the most flexible point currency out there. And that's because with Chase, you can redeem for cash back at 1 cent per point while also transferring out to partners with the right cards. But with other lenders like Amex, for example, you're only going to be getting a 0.6 cent per point value for cashback redemptions unless you have one of their 2 $695 annual fee cards, just to make that a respectable redemption rate. And that's why Chase is just much more beginner friendly. And I also know that that 2 cent per point number might feel like it just came out of thin air, but let me give you a quick example of a redemption that I did for better than 2 cents per point, so you see where that average kind of comes from. So in 2024, I have a trip planned to Croatia in which I'll be flying there in business class. And I booked this trip through Air France, but for one leg of the flight, I would have had to pay $2,762 in cash to book it. But by transferring points over to Air France instead of, booking it in cash, I only had to use 68,000 points and $220 in taxes and fees, which comes out to a total cent per point of 3.74 cents per point. Funny enough, I did actually book that flight using Amex points, but Air France is also a Chase travel partner, so you could have done the exact same thing either way. And keep in mind that this is one flight that was a international business class flight, which doesn't happen very often for a lot of us. And most of the time so far, I've redeemed for like Southwest flights that give me 1.4, 1.5 cents per point. But you can see that over time, that would average out to say 2 cents per point. Okay, so now we're covered in the total points that I got from the welcome bonus, as well as the total points I earned from spending on the card. Plus we know the value that Chase's Ultimate Rewards points could give me. But let's summarize everything here by talking about the total value that I've gotten from this card over the past 2.5 years in cash form. So as with any credit card, year one is going to give you the most value theoretically because of the welcome offer. So in 2021, I earned a total of 20,000 points from the sign-up bonus. Again, I didn't track my spend on the card, but I would imagine I got actually closer to 30,000 points. But I won't make that assumption here. We'll say that I only earned 20,000, and at 1 cent per point in cashback form, that would have given me $200 worth of value. At 1.5 cents per point in the travel portal, which I can get because I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, that's a value of $300. And then at an estimated 2 cents per point with travel partners, that would give me a value of $400 in the first year of having it. In 2022, remember, I only earned from spend on this card and didn't do a ton of it since I was spending towards other welcome bonuses, but I earned 7,391 points at 1 cent per point in cashback form. That's a value of $73.91. At 1.5 cents per point in the travel portal, that would be a value of $110.87. And then at that estimated 2 cents per point when transferring out to partners, that's a total of $147.82, which is, less than half of the value that I got in year one. And then finally, in 2023, I earned 5,420 points from spending on the card. At 1 cent per point in cashback form, that's a value of $54.20. At 1.5 cents per point through the travel portal, that's a value of $81.30. And then at that same estimated 2 cent per point valuation with transfer partners, I would have earned a grand total of $108.40. So obviously not a ton of value here in the last 3 years in point form technically, but let's discuss how much I might earn in future years based on some projected data. Now that I'm using this card more as a catch-all credit card than I have in the past couple of years, I would estimate that I earn roughly 10,000 points a year on it, which still obviously isn't a ton. And also this could change depending on how many more cards I decide to add. And as for the valuation of those points, that would give me $100 in cashback form, $150 through the travel portal, and $200 with transfer partners. So obviously these are not high values by any means, but at the end of the day, this card has no annual fee, so it's just all positive value. But at the same time, I manage 12 different credit cards at this point, so is it really worth keeping this card open and taking up that mental headspace? Well, let's go ahead and talk about what's next for this card. So the real bottom line here is that this card has no annual fee, and I personally don't recommend ever closing cards with no annual fee unless you have a really good reason to do so. I can keep this card active with even just 1 or 2 charges on it every single year, and considering I have a few recurring purchases set up on it, specifically Odin's dog food, that's not going to be an issue for me at all. Another reason I won't really ever consider closing this one specifically is because it was the second ever credit card I applied for, meaning that it's propping up my average age of accounts pretty heavily. Yes, if I was to cancel it, it would age on my report for another 10 years since I'm in good standing with Chase. But at the same time, like I said, I don't need to close it. It's not hurting my pocketbooks by having it. It's actually just giving me more money every year. So again, just another reason to keep it open. I also just think that having it in the back pocket for times when I do need Chase points and want to switch more of my spend towards my Chase credit cards is really nice because yes, I do keep the Venture X in my physical wallet with me, but I could very easily just swap in the Chase Freedom Unlimited if I wanted to. And if I close this card, of course, I wouldn't have that ability. Yes, I do have the Chase Ink Unlimited now, which gives me 1.5x on all of my purchases, but I'll be doing my best to reserve that for business expenses only. So that wouldn't really help me in the case of, needing a catch-all credit card with Chase. On that note, I'm also somebody, like I've said multiple times, with 12 different credit cards at the time of me filming. So every one of my credit cards serves one very small purpose usually. To some people, I know that might not make any sense, but for credit card enthusiasts, that is basically our bread and butter. So while this card is not going to be a massive point earner for me every single year, you may very well be in a situation where you're at the start of your credit card journey looking for a card to just cover all of your purchases for some time. And that is where I think the Chase Freedom Unlimited really shines. Everyone's goals in the credit card game are going to be slightly different, but all I know is that the Chase Freedom Unlimited has served me extremely well over the past few years, and the only reason I wouldn't continue to hold this exact card is if I product changed this card to another OG Chase Freedom to reapply for the bonus on the Chase Freedom Unlimited. But I don't know about y'all, I don't have enough 524 slots open for that. So is the Chase Freedom Unlimited worth the hype? In my opinion, I'd say yes it is, especially for somebody trying to build out a Chase credit card setup early on. However, as with any credit card, it's not for everybody, and through this video, I don't mean to make you feel like you need to get this card, but instead just wanted to give you my actual data so you can extrapolate that to your personal goals and your personal credit card setup to see if this card's really worth it for you. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do plan on applying for this card after watching this, it would mean a ton to me if you could check the links down in my description before applying. And if you don't see the exact offer that you want, DM me on Instagram and I will make sure to point you in the right direction. At this point, if you do want to hear more about the start of my personal credit card journey, which did obviously include the Chase Freedom Unlimited, go ahead and check out this video next. And as always, I'm not sure if you can see Odin back there, but his paws are hanging off the bed. We both want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.